Hi everyone, I'm back. Having difficulties making this video. I'll try one more time. It's bedtime, I need to get in bed. But I made two videos earlier today, and I titled those videos Transsexual Identification. And the reason I title them that is in those videos, really. And in this one, I'm going to kind of cap it off and talk about my my first experiences with identifying the term or even meeting a real transsexual person the first time. So, to first even have any kind of discovery or be enlightened to the fact that transsexuals existed, I think I was probably, my best guess would be somewhere around 8 or 10 years old in that window of time. And it was more of an accidental thing. Someone on our street had moved away, and the house was left vacant, as there were vacant homes in the neighborhood way back when. But as juveniles, we used to own our neighborhood, and we were in and out of anything that was vacant, and all the fields and places where we could hang out. That's where we were. But in this particular vacant house, around the back in a storage area, there were a lot of boxes that were left behind from their moving. Well, within these boxes, and there was many of them, were hundreds of pornographic magazines. And amongst those magazines, I think I saw pictures of my first transgender person. I saw a male-to-female transsexual. What I was looking at, or what I thought I was looking at, I remember this vividly, was a woman, and she had a penis, which I'd never heard of such a thing or seen such a thing, and I was still, I think, puberty had not really arrived. I was still really young. So here I am flipping through all these pornographic magazines looking at these fashion models of the time, naked. They weren't showing, well, some of these magazines, I have to say, most of them were just Playboy and Penthouse and Hustler and things like that, and were limited to how much they were exposing. But there were some magazines amongst all of those that were graphical, that were showing everything. And for a child as young as I was, to see these things was, I'll call it, disturbing. So that was my first disturbance in that fashion. That's probably a good term. And a real one. So anyway, to fast forward some, now I'll talk about my first interaction with a transgendered individual and that experience. Well, that experience came about, I think I was probably, I'm going to guess, but it's probably really close, around 18 or 19 years old, when I was able to drive. I was out of school where I shouldn't have been, and running the streets doing things I shouldn't be doing, and she happened to be a street girl, a transsexual prostitute. This was my first acquaintance with a transgender person, first real interaction. And fortunately for me, it was a positive experience. She was not bad looking. She was pretty far along in her transition. I recall she had real breasts. She wasn't a cross-dresser. She had quite a female body, developed. She is pretty well developed. And for a street girl, when I look back on her, I thought, this is pretty amazing. But I didn't have much knowledge of how these people got that way, who they were really. I was still lost in my own gender dysphoria, my own gender confusion. And when I met this person, she left an impression on me that lasted a long time. The first impressions mean a lot, and this first impression on me stuck, to the point to where I had curiosities, curiosities that would manifest themselves more. More curiosities grew within me about these kinds of people after my first experience with them. And I think because I self-identified somehow with the issues I had experienced quite a few years prior to that, and my attraction to same gender people as myself, being attracted to men, yet knowing I was not a homosexual. I am not a homosexual, and I don't think I ever was, and I don't believe I ever will be. I think I've always been a transsexual, and it just took a lot of experimentation and self-diagnosing to discover that fact, and process of elimination. And this is how I arrived, through trial and error. And fortunately, again for me, I met the right people, and I did have some problems back then in those days with other prostitutes and things. Not that I had a real issue with this, but it's just a part of my past. It's something I'm not interested in now. I'm not a prostitute and never will be, and I don't frequent them either. It's just something I did. So anyhow, that's kind of what I wanted to share. I'll talk more about this in future videos in regards in other fashions, but to get off the topics that I made today on the transgender identification and whatnot, this was my experience, for me, the first times that I can really look back and recall, and that was a lot of years ago. Take that in consideration when you're watching and listening to this video, that this isn't in the now, this isn't in the 20th, in 2000s. This is like way back, I want to say in 1970, somewhere around there. 71, 72 maybe. That's a long time ago. And to have that connection way back then was different than it is to have that connection today. And the majority of those girls, I don't mean to stereotype, but the majority of those girls in that era were recognized and were acknowledged as prostitutes. They were street girls. No two ways about it. So that's how people viewed them, if they even knew what a transsexual was. So I'm running out of minutes. I just kind of wanted to share that. I need to go to bed. I'll try to make some videos tomorrow. If I don't, it'll be a day or two. And I hope you'll enjoy these and just give me time to express. I'll catch up on current events eventually. I'm still talking about my past and just getting in front of the camera and getting comfortable. But I hope you find some interest in me and will continue to watch me. And if you've subscribed, to hang on to those subscriptions for a while anyhow. Okay? So you all have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.